Hello, welcome to RC Video Reviews. Today we're taking a first look at the Extreme Flight 60-inch GB1 Gamebird. Alright guys, I've picked up a couple of Extreme Flight planes lately, and I gotta tell you, I'm really enamored with what these guys are doing. They've put out some really creative models. They fly fantastic. They go together so well, and they look great in the sky. They really help with teaching and learning how to fly 3D. So I've really been thrilled with my Extreme Flight purchases, and I thought we'd take a closer look at this Extreme Flight GB1 Gamebird. We'll start off by taking a look at the wings, and one thing I like a lot on this color scheme is the red, the black, the silver, and the white. As you guys know, those are my channel colors, right? Red, silver, black, and white. Awesome color scheme on this plane. And that's the look at the top, and here's a look at the bottom. You can see I've already put in the wing servos. So I've had this out of the box, and I've done a little bit of work. I just put in the wing servos. Those are the Emax 9252s. That's what I'm using. Anyway, the wing looks excellent, and I can tell you that the servos went in there, no modifications whatsoever. They've got a really nice carbon fiber control horn that goes in here, and the control surfaces are already slotted and hinged, but you do have to glue them in. So they're not glued in out of the factory. You have to do that work. But overall, I'd say the covering scheme is fantastic. The build quality with Extreme Flight is always fantastic. Notice you've got fore and aft carbon fiber pins for managing the incidence of the wing and keeping that where it's supposed to be. But yeah, perfectly well done wing, straight as an arrow, very nice. When you're flying these larger planes, this is a 60-inch wingspan, you really kind of need to take them apart to go to the field, or you very much limit what you can fit. So I've got a pickup truck, and if I don't take the wings off this plane, that's the only thing I can fit in the bed. And you kind of risk damaging it or getting that hanger rash. So I really appreciate what Extreme Flight does by including the wing bags. No extra charge for that. That's included in the price of the plane. Now I'm going to tell you guys from a cost comparison basis, this is probably worth about 25 bucks. They have some nice nylon bags out there that are about 50, and you can make a set of these on your own for about 20. So $25 to $30, and it's a nice bag because not only does it have a nice Velcro enclosure to keep everything in, it's got a handle right here, and then on the inside of the bag, there's space for your spar. There's a compartment for that right here up at the top, so your wing spar fits in there, which means you should never leave it at home on the way to the field, and then the wings fit in there nice and tidy. And there's also another compartment right here. Hopefully I can get this on camera for you, but right there, that compartment is for your side force generators. They fit in there just perfectly along with any hardware. So it's a really well thought out bag, and I am very grateful for this type of touch. I mean, it's very considerate on their part to include this feature because they know if you're going to be flying these big planes, you need a wing bag so you can take your stuff apart. And the last thing you want to do is damage these beautiful wings on the way to the field. Okay, here's a look at the port wing, and just like the starboard wing, it is excellent. The covering, I really like their graphic schemes on Extreme Flight. There's a look at the leading edge that is straight as an arrow, and just like the other wing, I've got the servo installed already. And same situation with the hinge. You do have to glue those in and install the horn, but everything else is pretty much done for you. It's really very minor effort in terms of getting the wing set up with the servo and the connecting hardware. Next up is the fuselage, and I'll give you a look at the outside before we get into the details. And as you can see, everything looks very nicely done on the fuselage. So the covering on this plane, fantastic. One thing I'm going to show you, I'll point it out right here. There's this little release clip, and what that release clip does is it kind of finds the center point of the canopy and holds that down on the fuselage. So that's what that's about. It's just a release to hold that center piece down. There's also a release up here on the top that's spring loaded, and that's a pin that goes into the back. Also notice that the canopy glass is tinted, which is very cool. Same thing on the port side. Everything looks very clean and tidy there. I don't see any issues with the covering. Everything is just beautiful on these planes. Very nicely done. There's a few spots where I might take an iron. You can see a wrinkle here or a wrinkle there, but I don't fault the manufacturers for that. That's just a function of heat shrink and heat. That's all there is to it. You have to make those adjustments. I've learned that lesson over time. It's really not worth worrying too much about. There's always going to be some adjustment on that heat shrink. All right, so we're going to pull these clips forward, this one on the port side and starboard side, and then the last thing we do is pull the spring release on the back, and that will let us lift the canopy off the airframe. The first feature I want to show you inside are these quick releases, and these are guillotine kind of mechanisms, and all you have to do, there's a little ball bearing right there. All you have to do when you push the wing in is push this down, and that latches into place. And it's a very positive lock. That wing is not coming out, and when you want to take the wing off, you simply lift that thing up, and the guillotine rises, and you can pull the wing straight out. It is a brilliant idea. I'm really impressed with that technology. And if you're at the field putting wings on or taking them off, it just makes the job faster and easier. Another impressive feature with extreme flight planes is just how much carbon fiber they use. It's all over the place. You can see it up on the motor box. They've got it on the battery deck, on the equipment deck, and all the way down into the back. They've got carbon fiber married up to balsa, so that adds strength and rigidity to the airframe without adding a whole lot of weight. It's just really well done. The holes are already drilled through the tabs, and there's blind nuts in the back, and the holes are already drilled in the cowl as well. So when it comes time to mount the cowl, you simply slide it on and screw it in. Can't get any easier. They've done all the alignment work for you. You don't have to do any of it. Another time saver on extreme flight planes is how they've gone around and they've cut out all the openings where you're going to need access to the interior. So wherever there's a bolt or a spar or a wire that goes into the airframe, they've already cut the holes for you. Same thing on the bottom where you need ventilation. They've already done the ventilation cutouts on the bottom of the airframe as well right here. It's really not a big deal to do this kind of work on your own, but it's really handy and it just saves you time when the manufacturers do it. So I, for one, really appreciate that aspect of extreme flight planes. Another feature about the fuselage that's very nice is they've already got the opening for the horizontal stabilizer and the servos. So there's either the rudder elevator servo and there's the other one on the backside. So the shrink covering has already been removed from the opening, and it's very simple matter just to slide that stabilizer in, fix it in place, and then add the servos. Very simple to do on these planes. And the last thing I like to give Extreme Flight credit for is they've already got the firewall set up with the holes drilled for a standard radio mount for the correct size motor on this plane, and they do use industry standard mounts. So you can either use their motor or another one. As long as you use one in the size class for this airplane, it's going to bolt right up. And I, for one, really appreciate that. I think that's well done. They're not using a proprietary motor format that forces you into using their motor. You can use any motor you want as long as it's set up and delivering the right kind of power for this type of plane. So a lot of very nice design elements in Extreme Flight fuselages, and I, for one, really appreciate what they do. Next up is the cowl, and as you can see, the paint looks absolutely fantastic. I haven't seen a single defect in there. And I'll also remind you that the holes are already drilled for cowl mounting on the fuselage, which is just really handy to have. You don't really worry about chipping the paint when it's all done like that for you. Anyway, yeah, the paint looks fantastic on this cowl. Really well done. Until you've done this, it's kind of hard to appreciate it, but these are the side force generators, and notice how they've got this little keyed access. The reason they do that is because they've got thumb screws that go into the wingtips, and instead of having to take those screws out while you're at the field and risk losing them, they stay in the wingtip. And all you have to do is loosen them, and then you slide this side force generator forward over the screw, and it just pops right off, and you stick it in the bag. So thoughtful, very convenient. I really love this feature about Extreme Flight planes. It seems simple, I know, but believe me, it's a nice feature to have when you're setting up and tearing down a plane. It makes the assembly process quite a bit faster. Here's a look at the rudder, and the shrink covering on it looks spectacular as well. And just like the ailerons, the rudder is already slotted and hinged with the hinges already in the rudder, ready to be glued in their place. No issues there, and I kind of really dig that little scallop in the bag. It's going to give the plane a little bit of character. Here's a look at the stabilizer. Of course, very straight, perfectly straight. I wouldn't expect anything less from Extreme Flight. And another nice little touch, they've already removed the shrink covering over the area that you're going to glue when you put this inside the fuselage. So again, not a big deal, but it's just nice because they're saving you the time. Just like the rudder and the ailerons, it is hinged and slotted, but it's not glued in yet. So that's something you'll have to do when you put it together. Here's a look at the wheel pants, and just like the cowl, the lines are crisp on this. I don't see any defects. Everything's polished really well. They look just spectacular. No issues at all with the wheel pants. And here's a quick look at the landing gear. Of course, with Extreme Flight, you expect carbon fiber landing gear, and that's exactly what you get. So there's the landing gear. And here's another thoughtful thing that Extreme Flight does. They include the daggone spinner, but they don't just throw in a piece of junk. They throw in one that's got an aluminum backplate. If you guys follow my channel for any period of time, you know that's what I look for. You got to minimally have that aluminum backplate. I cannot stand spinners that have plastic backplates. To me, they're just a waste of time and money. They include the right kind of spinner. It's sized for the airplane. I'm sure it's color matched just fine. And it's got that aluminum backplate. And they even give you the little ventilated cyclone style, so it'll help blow some cold air over your motor. Very thoughtful stuff. This is the kind of thing that I really like about Extreme Flight. Here's a look at the hardware bag. I'm not going to tear into this because really I just don't want to lose the parts, but one thing that I've noticed is they have a little radio mount in there. That's actually a spacer. So in case your motor is just a little bit short and you need to push it out, you can use that spacer. They've also got the wheels and all the linkage hardware that you need in the bag. The hardware bag on Extreme Flight planes is kind of small. It's not huge, and that means the assembly is fairly quick. And I'm going to tell you, you can generally put these planes together in about an evening. Next up are the decals. You can see they've got a North American tail number. They've got some Extreme Flight logos, Gamebird logos, X-Power if you want to use that. Not over the top, but just a few things if you want to decorate your plane a little bit. The manual's decent. It's not industry leading, but it's enough. So what I mean by that is they use black and white photos, and they're somewhat generic. You know, those are not the wheel pants on this plane. So it's okay, you know, it's enough to walk you through it. It gets the point across. But I mean, honestly, if you're flying planes around like this by now, you probably already have a pretty good idea on what needs to be done to build them. So again, you can see that the pattern on the plane is not the same thing that we've got on the Gamebird. But that's fine. It's enough to get you through the build, and it gives you the information you need related to what order you want to put things in and where your CG belongs and your throws and all that kind of stuff. So they're kind of mailing it in a little bit on the manual, but of all things to mail it in on, this is the one I'm most okay with because, like I said, if you're flying these types of planes, you probably have a pretty good idea on what to do anyway. And the last thing we've got is some color matched heat shrink, and this is probably designed to help you close the gap on your elevator and rudder if you want to, and also affect repairs. So if you put a small hole in the shrink covering, they give you some material to help cover it up. Oddly enough, I've done that to my planes before, so it's a really nice touch to have that. This is what I mean about thoughtful. They include a little bit of extra. Doesn't have to be a whole roll, but it's a little bit of extra in case you put a hole in it or get a little bit of hanger rash. You can have an opportunity to repair it without spending 20 bucks on a roll of shrink covering. Regarding the rest of the setup, I'll be using a Sunny Sky V3 4125 515 kV motor paired with a Hobby Wing 80 amp Platinum V5 ESC, along with the Emax 9252 servos and a badass 16x7 wood prop from Innovative Designs. Alright guys, that wraps up my first look at the Extreme Flight 60-inch GB1 Gamebird. I hope you liked the video, and if you do like this type of material, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when new videos hit the channel. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy. Hey, if you like the work I do here on RC Video Reviews, please consider joining me on Patreon. For about the price of a cup of coffee, you can help me keep making videos just like this one. If you'd like to help out, there's a link in the description and on your screen. And another nice little touch, they've already